In season 5.5 of Marvel Rivals, we find ourselves with the poster boy of the MCU for a very long time, Mr. Tony Anthony Stark, aka Iron Man, being a very bad character. He's not good at all whatsoever. There's a lot wrong with Tony Stark. So I thought today I would take it upon myself to enter the mystical realm that is Guang Guang's mind and figure out how I would go about buffing Mr. Tony Stark. First, my philosophy when it comes to buffing characters, like I do in every video: 1, fun. Why? Can't make the game balance, get over it. 2, good. Duh. 3, skill expression. Great, glad we got that out the way. So Mr. Tony Stark has a lot of problems. There's a lot. So he's going to get, I believe he would need 4 buffs from his current state. These 4 buffs to make him be F, if not D tier, to at least a B tier, which is pretty much where I'm trying to get. And B, A tier, you typically like, yeah, B and A tier. That's typically what I'm going for. Not really going for S tier. S tier is kind of like, S tier is a little too much. So B and A tier is what I'm shooting for. So Iron Man already has a lot of uphill battles. 1, he's very slow. 2, fat ass hitbox. 3, his ult is just useless. The problem is, the top 2 tanks in the game, well, specifically the top tank in the game, 1A or 1B, whatever you want to consider, Magneto shits on Iron Man like it's his job. Iron Man cannot ult if there's a Magneto in the lobby, because Mag just eats Iron Man's ult and either launches it back at him, right back to center, or throws it at a strategist and they goddamn explode because it's like a 90% charge or whatever. So the buffs I will be giving him, and we're going to, of course, go into detail, is a buff to he would get a new way to fire, or a new primary fire, or I guess secondary fire, a buff to micro missiles, a buff to his flight, and a buff to overdrive. I think these 4 buffs would make him at least B or A tier. So the first buff I would give is he would get a new secondary fire, right? A left click, ostensibly. Instead of, I think right now, is his left click his chest beam on PC? I don't think he... Well, anyway, whatever it is on PC, he would get a new way to fire his cannons, aka he would get a repulsor cannon, I believe. Yeah, repulsor cannon, which is, this time it will be a set time. So unlike, so he wouldn't actually charge it, I guess. Is like, you wouldn't manually charge it. It would always charge to the same percent every time, right? So you would click it once, regardless if you hold it or tapped it, and it would fire 2 repulsor cannon blast, consuming 1/4 of his ammo, 25%. Dealing upon direct impact 175 and then 75 splash damage. Enemies hit by the splash damage would also be knocked back, and then, but whoever took the direct impact of it wouldn't. This would, the blasts are not going to be back to back, right? So it isn't going to be like you get hit with 1-2 and it's 350, you just explode. They would be hit, they're going to be simultaneous, so right next to each other. So if you did it right, you could do about exactly 250 if you do it exactly right, which means that you direct impact with one and then hit the other one with splash damage. It would essentially one-shot 250. The left beam or the left cannon would be slightly ahead of the right one. Not even slightly. It would be ahead of the left one. So the left hand, or or the left beam would always hit first, and then about, I would say, a second later, the right one would come and hit. So there would be a slight delay between the impact of the first cannon and then the second one, while they are about, like, separated by about 5-ish meters, slightly left, slightly right? So not just back to back, so you don't, like I say, so it isn't just like you hold charge, come around the corner, fire both, and then you hit a strategist back to back, and then they just fucking explode, and then they go on Reddit and cry about it. I think the knockback effect would be funny. I don't know how strong it would be, but like, this would allow, like, on certain maps, if you play it right, you can just bounce people off the edge of the maps and stuff like that. I think that would be funny. Some practicality to that. This is just kind of like a new secondary fire. Like I say, I think it would just increase his damage, because right now, from far away, his damage is like, it just isn't worth it. Like he is an annoying character, just not a good one, where like, if the other team is like really good, like the Iron Man is kind of like the annoyance on top. He's like the fly on a hot summer day when there's no wind or no AC. There are several more problems than this fly, but the thing that's driving you nuts is this fucking fly. Like the heat, you're just like, I'll worry about that later, but this fucking fly I can deal with, right? Trust me, I've had it where teammates are just like, the Iron Man's an issue. And I'm like, there's a lot bigger issues than this fucking Iron Man. Yeah, his stats are going crazy, but I promise you, the rest of the team is the issue. But aside from that, is the first buff that I would give him. His second buff is to micro missiles. They might be one of the most useless abilities in the game. I don't think micro missiles have ever killed anybody. They are useless 90% of the time because you can only use them in very two specific instances. While you're in flight mode and coming out of flight mode, and then in overdrive. I think it's while you're in overdrive or while you're exiting overdrive, you can use micro missiles, and they don't do anything. They're useless. So I thought to give them a use. So micro missiles, the new effect they would get is they would now lock onto enemies below 20% HP, firing heat-seeking missiles that deal 15 damage per missile hit. Iron Man would always fire 18 missiles, so he would do about 275 damage for every missile that hit. That will split equal to the number of targets locked on, right? So let's say all 6 enemies are below 20% HP, they all get 3 missiles, so they all take 45 damage. Or if there's just one enemy that's below 20% HP, they're gonna, like I said, they're below 20%. So like they're like one shot, and like Iron Man being able to finish them would give him some use. Like aerial opponents or like divers or anything like that, even though if you're playing Iron Man against dive, but you might need a little bit more health than we thought. But him being able to kind of I don't know the specifics I would give for the lock on range. Like I said, I kind of do like the general thing. A lot of micro stuff is like, you would got to tweak because you would have to figure out like, all right, if I give it 50 meters, is 50 meters too much? What if I put it 35 too little, right? That's the nuance thing, or it's kind of hard to figure out what would be just too much or too little, which is why I would leave it up to NetEase if they theoretically implemented this buff. If NetEase agents were watching and saw this and were like, oh, that seemed like a good idea. Like, I don't know the appropriate distance, but the 18 missiles was kind of just, specifically with this one, I kind of want it to be like the finisher. Like the heat-seeking missiles, it tracks, to be specific, it can be blocked. It's not like it can't be blocked. It goes around stuff. Like you can also kind of, they're not going to hit 90%, or they're not going to hit fucking 180-degree turns. They're still going to need to turn like ordinary missiles, which means like, if you're running away and you hit a fucking hard right turn inside of a building, like you can still escape it. It is just kind of like, I don't want them to be fucking omniscient missiles, like cartoon missiles where they just stop and then they slightly turn, like I see you go over there, but I want them to at least follow you, so like, if you run away. This would also stop the devil herself, Invis, so even if she goes invisible, still finds her, still kill her. Yeah, I just think this would be a nice buff to help finish, and we'll give micro missiles some practicality, knowing that you can kind of just act every time someone's below 20%. Oh, they're one shot, you just lock on and then you fire all 18, and like I say, it does almost 300. It does exactly 275, which, like I say, it can be blocked, it can be evade. So theoretically, even if they get full health, if they just get healed and the team turned away and they just don't notice the micro. Also, I think I would probably add in like a micro missile sound effect, like you would hear them tracking you. The GTA sound effect when someone's locked onto you in GTA and stuff like that, or like COD, and you hear that do 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 do, like you would hear that, knowing that Iron Man's locking onto you, right? Now, maybe not. It would depend on like if the missiles were too problematic, then you would add that to let people know. But like I would see how they would actually, like I would see how they would go without the sound effect. Then if it was just like, yo, this is too stupid, then add a sound effect later. That's just my 2 cents. But yeah, micro missiles would actually not have a point. Now on to buff 3. Buff numero 3. Flight adjustment implemented 8-way flight. So this is like a fighting game term. 8-way essentially means, because there's 8 directions in a fighting game on 2D fighting games, north, northwest, west, southwest, south, southeast, east, and then northeast. Those are kind of the directions, 8-way directions. So right now, Iron Man has a real bad problem that I've noticed when I played him, even though I haven't played Iron Man before I recorded this video. And Iron Man, to go into his flight, his hyper velocity, which is when he takes off, he always goes forward, or he always goes the way your camera is looking. So if we, for instance, talk about somebody like Johnny, Human Torch if you go into like his hyper flight mode, or I forgot what it's called, he can go every single direction directly while he's in that flight mode. Iron Man cannot. Iron Man can only go the direction you're looking, which is real like ass. Like, it's real bad because it requires you to, in a lot of cases, have to turn around and then leave, which while you're turning around, like, or turning, like, you're just fodder. Like, you against anyone who can aim, you're going to die in that second, instead of just being able to press the flight immediately to either just go up or go down while you press the flight mode, or just to instantly go left. The fact you have to turn and look in which direction just cooks him. Remember, he's the loudest character in the game. You hear Iron Man before, when you load up Marvel Rivals, you hear where Iron Man's coming from. Yeah. So having him at least be able to move, because if he's not in flight mode, he is so fucking slow. Like, he moving left and right is already so incredibly slow. I thought about maybe buffing that one too much, making him faster and harder to hit, but then I was like, I don't think we want a Human Torch situation. But I mean, Human Torch's situation was like, I think it's him constantly going in and out of his Hypernova form or whatever that made him speed up. It would fuck up his hitbox, so he became harder to hit than he should have. And I don't really, in this 8-way flight, Iron Man would probably figure out some shit where they could just constantly go in and out and dodge it and all side, and probably fuck up his hitbox to an exponential degree. So I think this will be fine. It would also help him escape. Remember, we don't want him to be S tier. We just B and A. That's what we're aiming for. B and A. So the buff 3 is just the flight adjustments. A-way. It allows it to start. So they say if you're holding down as Iron Man, if you're holding down and going backwards, if you just press flight, you will instantly, without having to turn your camera, just start flying backwards as Iron Man, right? Like, I mean, you won't be able to see shit because Iron Man will be facing you as he comes back, and then you can turn your camera. But like, I think this would help. This would help a lot. Then the final buff. Buff number 4. Hyper Overdrive can now be canceled early. Hyper Overdrive has the early Thor rune thing. If you guys don't remember, Thor, if you went into, Awakening Thunder, you couldn't cancel it, which means if you were it was 7 seconds, Iron Man has the same thing. When Iron Man is in Armor Overdrive, which is when like all his damage gets increased and all that stuff, you can't cancel it. And you can't stop it. And you might ask, now, why would you cancel it? That is because, which is the part 2 of this buff, Hyper Overdrive, if you go into hyper velocity, right, you try to leave, cancels the animation. Like, there's an animation for when it leaves, which forces Iron Man to stop mid-flight. Or if you're in flight, in mid-flight while you have Hyper Overdrive, you will literally stop flying, do this animation, and then you're just fodder, right? So I also fixed it to where in hyper velocity, he can activate and deactivate Hyper Overdrive without canceling. He doesn't have to stop. So you could be flying to point, activate it, and then you can have Hyper Overdrive while you get there. Instead of, a lot of times as Iron Man, you have to fly up, get behind a corner, then activate Hyper Overdrive, and then slowly come around the corner, then start firing. Like, allowing this where he's flying away, it deactivates without him having to be like, oh, let me deactivate this. Oh, and I'm dead. Like, these buffs, and also canceling it so that it can go back on cooldown sooner. So like, if he does Hyper Overdrive, let's say the entire gets a team wipe, and let's just say there's 4 seconds left on Hyper Overdrive. Well, now he can cancel it, and then the cooldown for it is 4 seconds faster, instead of I have to wait 4 seconds. This mode isn't doing anything. Now the cooldown's over. Now the next fight starts, and I don't have my most powerful form because it's 4 seconds away or something like that. I think this buff would be amazing. I don't think Iron Man needs a buff to his damage at all, to be honest with you. I think for what he does and what he really does consistently, which is poke, right? He is real pokey. Good enough. His ultimate one-shots everything, but like I say, Mag counters him so unbelievably hard. And his ult's already difficult as fuck to pull off because the travel speed of the projectile is slow, the startup animation of the move is slow, everything about the move is slow. You can't sneakily do it most of the time unless you slowly drift around, because if you hyper velocity over there, everyone on the enemy team can hear you. There's just his entire ultimate, everything's going against him. I mean, they could technically do a big buff, and instead of making it a projectile, they can just change it to make it a laser so that Mag can't counter it, but I don't want them to do that. Having counters to your ult is a good thing in this game. But his ult, at least when you pull it off and you kill the Luna in her Luna ult, or you kill Invis, or you manage to kill the support while they're in the support ult, it's big value. It's just, it doesn't commonly happen because of everything that kind of goes against his ult. But like I say, I don't really want to touch his ultimate. I think his ultimate is bad, but it's fine the way it is. But these are the 4 buffs that I would give Iron Man that I believe would, at least at the bare minimum, move him up the B tier. And let me know your thoughts in the comments below. What do you believe, if he got these buffs in season 6, what do you think they would do to the character? And while you're down there, if you wouldn't mind leaving a like, possibly even a subscribe, it all helps the channel. And that's all I got, and I am gone.